Ladies and gentlemen, this is your 1-minute warning. Please find seats. We're going to get started here. Wim, are there folks outside? Are there folks outside? We could juggle with 80 to 100. I haven't got one yet. It's a solvable problem. Are we going to eat these after cream that tops? I guess so.
So, since we have a couple of minutes, good morning, everyone. Oh, yeah, it's early. I'm going to point out, I don't know if you guys have adorable stuffed Dart hummingbirds, but if you don't have one yet, we have plenty out front. We do? My understanding, cool. I've been told to encourage all of you to take swag. So I think there are still hummingbirds. There are many, many T-shirts, which is the currency of software.
If you already have one stuffy, wait till the end of the day before grabbing one for the kids or something. Let's make sure everyone at least gets one. Dash? Do you know why it's called Dash? The original name of Dart.
Is there anything else we need to talk about today before we get started? We have a shorter day today. We have 2 breaks, and then we have a couple of blocks of unconference sessions where you guys get to actually get up off your feet, be interactive, do some participation. I don't know exactly what time that starts. I believe 2:15, 2:30.
Let me open the unofficial app for the conference.
We're highly prepared, skilled presenters.
2:30 is when that starts. So they have the last official talk ends at 2, half-hour break. 2:30 we start the unconferences. So bathrooms are still out there. We'll still keep code of conduct, be excellent to each other.
Lots of snacks, coffee, caffeine.
If you have ideas about the unconference stuff, just please wait and do that in breaks and not during talks. Would be great. I think that's about it.
Thank you all for coming out again. I know it's always hard. Day 2, sort of, you feel some resources have been burned. I appreciate you all arriving.
Especially
Hopefully we'll make it worth your while.
Ready to go? Let's do it.
Yeah, do you want to announce them?
Jacob and Phil are here.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jacob and Phil are here to talk about the Flutter Widget Inspector. Take it away.
And here I know that I need to get material Flutter. And there we go. And it's all cleaned up, right? So handy dandy, Alt-Enter on certain error messages. Alt-Enter. OK. Let me try to get to my other window. This is an abbreviated version of what you saw yesterday in the lightning talk. This is the analysis server, right? So the analysis server is all Dart. It's not Flutter necessarily. It's not Angular specifically. But here I've got the Angular plugin inside of, updated with IntelliJ. And so I'm going to get errors and warnings and hints with my HTML. And if you saw Lightning Talk again, you already saw this, right? These things are all resolved. And since I'm in IntelliJ, I get the value from IntelliJ, right? So if I'm editing some tag, it should be smart enough to know that I need to edit both tags, right? And so this is value you get from the framework, from the IntelliJ framework, right? And so hopefully the better editing experience from IntelliJ plus things like the additional errors and warnings for your Angular tags and whatnot should yield a much happier experience. And so that's the Angular plugin. All right, I'm going to jump back to an example you have all seen many times. And that is the one right here, the hot reload. If you have not seen it, if you have not caught it on stage yet, I will point it out right now. And that is the following. Let's get my run dialog up here. Here we go, it's running. Onto my simulator. I can come down here, and you've all seen, change red to blue. Great, and I can come hit hot reload. We all love hot reload, right? The improvement, though, over the last few months has been a save action. So save, hot reload on save. Right? So this helps you from having to move your mouse down to hot reload or having to decide between hot reload and a full reboot of the whole app. Kind of helps keep you on the rails. You can imagine things in the future like if we know that hot reload is not going to be sufficient just to do the whole app. By just doing it on save, to try to keep you on the rails, keep you from having to move the cursor to hot reload, etc. So that's hot reload on save. Point out some other features that have been added into the Dart plugin, specifically for Flutter. So in Flutter, it's all about build It's all about your build method, right? It's that structure of the build. And so when modifying or exploring or reading existing code, right, it'd be really handy to be able to say, okay, my build has some widgets that contain widgets that contain widgets. Let me go through and navigate through these. And so because even the structure view comes from the analysis server, we now have that ability, right? So I can come down here and explore around the app to say, okay, here we go. Here's the, I've got some column and navigating to source, right? So with the navigate to and from source, the button's right up here selected. When I select in source, it's going to select in the structure view and vice versa, everything you'd want and expect. So that is the build method support inside the structure view in IntelliJ. All right, navigating around the build method a little bit more. You may have caught it this morning. It's sometimes kind of confusing. Where does this curly brace end for my center to see what it's wrapped in? You kind of have the highlighting from IntelliJ here and the hover kind of at the top there. We also have the kind of end-of-line markers here. This is not source code. This center comment here. That's provided from the analysis server still to mark the end of that constructor invocation, to indicate that, okay, everything above this is wrapped, etc. Now let's say that I know that everything in my center constructor, my center widget is good. I need to modify and tweak stuff around it. What I really want to do is fold stuff up into that constructor. And so as of a version or two ago, you can now do that, right? So I can now fold everything up, wrap it all up, and now work on the things around it. Hover to see what's in it. Kind of does what you want. So you kind of navigate around, edit different parts, ignore or not ignore specific parts as you're working on your widget structure. But you're not just exploring necessarily, not necessarily tweaking. Sometimes what you need to do is like wrap a widget inside of another widget, right? And the missing parentheses or bracket can be a big nuisance. And so this brings me to the second instance of the t-shirt here, which is Alt-Enter. So Alt-Enter, I can convert to a child, move the widget up, wrap with a new widget. So in this demo, I'm going to wrap it with another center, and it's not going to change on simulator after hot reload. So let's see it. Wrap with a center, enter. It put the closing braces everywhere I need. Right, it added this, the hot reload on save, and it doesn't change anything as it shouldn't, right? So that's live demo. Worked, yeah. Okay, one final little feature. So we saw a little bit ago the postfix completions. This last one that I want to show is this one. So ST. ST brings up these three things. Create a new stateful widget, a new widget with an animation controller, and a new stateless widget. So you can add your own inside the settings. But when creating widgets and whatnot, sometimes it's nice to have some boilerplate, and you should not be typing out the boilerplate, right? If you have your own custom boilerplate, go create your own, one of these things. So let's just see what one of them looks like. So new stateless widget. It puts the cursor directly where the class name should be. DartConf, whatever, and it brings me to where it expects I should be typing again. So ST, because I can't remember the rest of them, some new animation controller, right. And that is everything that I wanted to show. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did anyone learn things? Did we learn things during the talk? Did anyone switch and do caps lock control over the talk? One? Wait, was somebody else? And you get it? Ah, nice, huh? Two people, Bob, and you were making fun of me.
It's a sea change.
The sea change.
A revolution in software development productivity.
It's amazing. You guys know you can do Control A to go to the beginning of the line in the terminal, right, too? I'm not a Unix guy. Like, I came to it late. I worked at Microsoft for a while, and so, like, all these, like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Never mind.
Continue. This is great. I'm loving this. I'm done. I'm loving every bit
of
this.
Wait, are we? No, we're not.
Did you know that there's a button on your keyboard where you don't have to hold down Shift for every letter to make it capitalized? You push the button once, and it makes all of the letters capitalized. It's great for the kind of PM email you send all the time.
Everything going through my mind right now is like, oh, code of conduct. Like, no.
That's why they ask us to say it every day. It's for us,
it's
right?
For us, really.
Not actually, you guys are all fine. You follow all the rules, and you're great. And it's mainly for us.
Is it lunchtime yet? No. Yes.
Yes.
No? Yes.
I hope so. That's my understanding. It is lunchtime, right?
Let me open up the unofficial.
I'm hearing lots of people saying yes. Yeah, my understanding is that it is lunchtime. We changed
and office hours. Awesome. It's early today. Yesterday was late. Today it's early. Okay.
So yes, it is lunchtime. I believe it is the same setup as yesterday, out in the courtyard. Go through these doors, down the hall, and then there will be an open courtyard. Look for food, follow your nose. I believe we have an hour. The lunchtime is also kind of the QA time, so we don't do questions during the talks. So if there was a speaker that had something interesting to talk about, find that person, ask them questions. This lunch hour is also a good time to add stuff to the unconference schedule, pin stuff, vote on stuff. I don't actually know how unconferences work. I'm just using random words at this point. But do
sounds good. I buy it all.
Related to the unconference, or ask Wim, who is probably in the back somewhere over there waving.
Ask
if you have
Wim.
Unconference questions, he is the expert. We will be back in about an hour.
Enjoy lunch, and we're going to try to do a hard 12:30 start. So try to get back here before then, because we were live streaming. Thank you much.
Thanks.
Wim or Phil. Is there an organizer in the room that likes to run around?
Back there, Linda. You want me to send them up?
It's more around going outside to bring people in. We're going to get going here in a couple minutes, folks. Find your seats, please.
All right, I'm going to start making some noise. I think there are people rounding up, people eating lunch, people coming back in. Kevin, it's not the same without you.
I'm trying to find Natalie.
It's not a good thing.
Is Natalie here yet? Oh, here. We have your
Natalie does own, in fact, more pub packages than that.
I know. This is. I was running out of sticky notes. I figured I'd at least give her, So either she's a North Korean general, or there you go.
My badge in the hotel room, but thanks anyway.
That's totally good.
Congratulations on creating half of the package
Half of the
ecosystem.
packages.
And the package manager.
Such classics as Boolean selector and HTTP retry.
Those are useful packages. Use Boolean selector. It lets you select Booleans. It's great.
It's the second half of the last day. Gotta have some levity. 3 to go.
3 more talks.
Dun dun dun.
And then unconference sessions, which is the Boolean negation of a conference session. I don't know what that means. I don't even know what I'm saying right now.
I love I can just give you looks. I have this skill. Fossil's coming up next. Are you ready? Are we good to go?
You guys want to shut a door? Eric, how do you feel about shutting a door? Anyone who's
Shut a door.
not in by
Shut a door.
now
We're good.
does not deserve to return.
Was lunch good? Are you guys going to miss Google Food? Yes. It is pretty nice. We're hiring Dart engineers. Are we?
Apparently.
I think so. I mean,
Well, you have to now.
Exactly.
Just expense them.
Although it was funny is when I went to other conferences when I was at Microsoft, they said explicitly, don't try to recruit at conferences because then companies won't send people to your conference because they'll just get headhunted.
You just broke that rule.
But it's a Microsoft rule. But it might apply to us. I have no idea.
That's actually inside the stuffies. If you tear that open,
Exactly. No, don't tear apart Dash. You'll be sad, and Dash will be sad because
it's actually stuffed with disappointment.
Exactly. Wait till your dog shreds it when you get home, and then you can peek through the pieces. Okay. On that wonderful note, I think we're good. Having seats. Fossil's been around you've been around the Dart story for a long time, and I think he gets the points for the best dressed speaker so far. Although, work on the irony, man. Take
We're
the
not the
opportunity for
best
humor.
dressed.
0 to 1, building a real app in Flutter. Here's Fossil.
All right. Everyone hear me well? Good. Awesome. Thank you for coming after lunch. I know everyone just wants to sleep. So do I. So from 0 to 1, building a real-world Flutter application. What you learn about me throughout this talk is I'm super lazy. I'm so lazy that I took the title of the talk from that Peter Thiel book. And so I'm like, whatever. I just need a good title from 0 to 1. So this talk is really about me building a real-world Flutter application in record time, really 5 days. And the application is actually pretty big. It has about 500,000 users. And so I said, let's build it in Flutter. And we'll find out why and how I built it really quickly. Because I'm lazy, I use a lot of libraries. So yes, I just talked about the first part. Second part is the architecture of the app. I'm going to spend about 2 minutes on it, just a high-level overview of how the app looks. And then we'll go through each section and talk about the tips and tricks I learned from building that specific section and really which libraries to use. So about me, this is my funniest scene. Who am I? I don't know. So who am I really? I'm a Google developer expert in Dart and Flutter. I've been doing Dart for a long, long time. I think I started Dart probably like 2 years after or a year after it was released, mainly because I was tired of just doing web stuff and I just wanted to do something else aside JavaScript. And I really started Dart from the server. And I started using Dart on the server a lot, built this app in 2015 or 2014 in Dart on the server, and it was really good. So I just fell in love with Dart, started doing it on the web eventually, and then now with Flutter. I wrote, anyone read Flutter for Android on flutter.io? Yes, 1, 2. That was me. I wrote that in like 2 months. So if you find spelling mistakes, that's all me. I've been an Android developer for a long time, which is very relevant because Flutter is a much better experience for me as an Android developer. I've been doing Android since M1, when Android didn't even have a keyboard, believe it or not. So you just had to have a hardware device. Anyone remember the G1 device? Yes. Yeah. Well, this is Google, I'm sure. Obviously, you guys built it. And then I'm also a senior engineer at Zoom.ai. This is what I do during the day. So I do a lot of things. I don't know how I have time for any of this. Zoom.ai is an AI-based automated assistant. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. And outside of work, I'm an entrepreneur trying tons of different ideas. And this is why Flutter is also good. I do a lot of mobile apps. I do a lot of web stuff, backend stuff. And Dart and Flutter just help me make stuff really quickly, try it out, fail a million times, get rich off a couple of them. So the one that I got, made some money is VenChat. I started it in 2015. It's one of the top 150 to 200 grossing apps, depending on the month. It's very variable. It has 500,000 installs. It's essentially a chat app for singles. There's nothing special about it. And it's built in Android currently with a Dart backend. And so where does Flutter fit into this? Well, every time I look at stats on apps making money, anyone I talk to in the industry, they're always telling me about how iOS is making a lot more money. Any app published in iOS just makes 2 times, 3 times the money. So I wanted to build an iOS app. The problem is I don't have time. I have a day job, then I come home and I work on this stuff or I'm trying new stuff. And I don't want to build an iOS app and then maintain 2 apps all at once, right? Because not only do I spend 3 months building an iOS app, then I got to spend the rest of the app's life cycle maintaining new features on iOS, maintaining new features in Android, doing the same thing over and over again. It's a nightmare. I don't want to do that. That's how I feel whenever I thought about doing iOS. And then Swift came along, and I'm like, maybe I'll do Swift. Then I looked at it again. I'm like, no, forget that. Not doing that. So Flutter became the obvious choice for me. A lot of people said, well, you still have to write 2 apps. I'm like, yeah, but then I can use iOS as a guinea pig, test the app on there, test the Flutter app on iOS, get all the bugs hammered out, all the usability, whatever, and then just file build on Android and get it published there. So it's a very seamless process. I don't want to touch my revenue stream on Android, so it makes sense for me to build an iOS Flutter app, test it out, and deploy. So that's how I feel I'll be after I deploy the iOS app. So it just got submitted to Apple for approval yesterday. Should be in stores soon. So let me give you a quick demo of how the app is. Very simple. What I did for the demo is, because it's a chat app, I replaced all of you pictures with randomuser.me, and I recorded a video. Oh, I recorded a video here. All right, so here's the app, and this is all in Flutter. So this is running on iPhone X, or the simulator iPhone X, and I'm just going to, it's like a 40-second preview. You can scroll. There's a bunch of people there. That crazy guy over there. I can see the new members that just recently joined. And then I can see a list of all people that have sent me a message. I can click on a person, for example, this person right here, and send them a message, right? Simple, and that's about it. And so when I ended up building the app was roughly 60% less code than Android. It is a lot. Especially for a single developer just building this in his free time, it was a lot less code. That's mainly because Flutter just makes everything so much easier, right? Building list views on Android, you got to build up an adapter, set up recycling, or doing all sorts of crazy stuff. On Flutter, I just pass in an array into a list, and I'm good to go, right? And it really took me 5 days. After all that procrastination, I'm like, you know what? I finally need to build this. I sat there, started building it, and within 15 to 20 hours, I was done. Five after work days, so that's like 2 hours a day or something, and I was done. That was me for a couple days, working away. And the architecture is pretty simple for the app. We have a WebSocket that comes in, and that's really for all the chat, the real-time stuff. We're not using Firebase for real-time. That's because when you send a message, it needs to go to our server, do a lot of spam analysis on it, tons of moderation and everything, and then we send it to the user. And so we use a WebSocket for that. The WebSocket then triggers an event bus message, which is when you're chatting with the member, a message comes in, you can start replying to the member. And then also, as you chat, your points go down. So there's an in-app currency. You have a finite amount of points before you have to buy more points to chat. And so the points are also being pushed by WebSocket whenever you send a message or when someone sends a message to you. And then lastly, there's a complicated REST API. There's like 40, 50 endpoints there doing all sorts of stuff from uploading pictures to videos, audio clips, creating profiles, downloading tons of data. Lots and lots of stuff there. So I'll go through each one of these pieces and talk about the challenges I faced and how I solved it in record time. The first one is WebSockets. Like I said, WebSockets allow real-time chat between the user, the server, and the user again. The problem was WebSockets need to be open during the app, but when the app is in the background, I need WebSockets to stop. So on Android and iOS, there's an on-resume, on-pause callback done. On Android, at least, I used WebSocket stop, and then when the on-pause and then on-resume, I did WebSocket.start. I wanted to find something similar on Flutter, and I did, thanks to widgets binding observer. If everyone can see that code. The slides will be up later too, but I'm just going to quickly describe it. Widgets binding observer is a way for you to listen to your application states. And this was perfect for me, so what I did was I set up a widget binding observer at the top level of my app. That's the only place I need this WebSocket to start, because the rest of it is handled by Event Bus. And I set that up. I set up an instance in the init state, and then I get rid of it when you're disposing of the state. And then in did application lifecycle change, I just detect, hey, is the app open or is the app closed? Super simple architecture pattern that I found was super easy for me to just turn on the WebSocket and turn it off. And the big thing is it helps me conserve battery life. Because if I keep the WebSocket running in the background, you just have an open socket going, and it's just going to eat up the person's data and also the battery life. So widgets binding observer is a really useful trick if you have something long running that you want to pause when the application goes in the background. The second is the points are an in-app currency in the app, like I said before. Whenever you do something, points are being used. Now, the points are actually shown everywhere throughout the UI. If you browse the app a lot, you'll see that everywhere you go, you'll see points and how many points you have. And those points are always being updated depending on your interactions with the app. And so my initial pattern there was build a simple event bus. On every widget, every page, I have an event bus that's listening to the points. And then when you go off the page, I close the event bus, and I listen to it again on the next page. It seemed too messy. There had to be an easier way. And so I started digging through the documentation, and I found this great thing called inherited widget. And inherited widget is a simple way to pass a piece of data across all your widgets without having to set up a bunch of event listeners, without having to call a set state whenever data is updated. And so what I did was I set up an inherited widget at the root of my widget tree at the start, and then that passed in points. And all I had to do was just have one event bus listener, 4 points coming in from my WebSocket, and that just sent out an update that propagated throughout the app, whatever was active, and the points got updated. So code sample there is, here's my points widget, really simple. I just extend inherited widget. All the constructor takes is the actual points that the user has as this point, and then a child. And the child, in my case, is the entire application. And then should notify update. When should the inherited widget notify its children that there's been an update to the points? When the points are not the same as the new points. Simple logic there. And then I just wrote a simple helper function called of, which takes in a context and searches through the widget tree to find where this points widget is. And that's how I get a handle to this widget. Then I set it up in my application at the top there. So this is my main.dart file. I call new points widget, pass in points. There's some code above it that's just actually listening to the WebSocket and getting the points coming in. And then there's my material app, which is the child there. After that, somewhere, anywhere in my app in the widget tree, I can call, if you notice, points widget.of context.points. And wherever I'm listening to that, whenever points are updated, that's going to trigger an update on that widget, and I'll get the most recent amount of points that the user has. This is really useful because it helps you save memory state also. Rather than opening tons of listeners and then forgetting to close them, that's a problem that I kept running into, where I kept forgetting to cancel the stream subscription, and I kept running into widgets being updated in the background and causing all sorts of issues. So inherited widget is your friend. Use it for when you want to pass some piece of data across the application. It seems daunting. The docs aren't super clear on it, but if you take a look at the sample, and there's a great Medium post on it too, you'll understand that it's actually a very simple concept, and you can really use it anytime you want when you have a single piece of data flowing through your application. Now, once I had these two things going, my next big challenge on Android was I used retrofit. Anyone here used retrofit before? Yes, okay, great. Lots of Android guys here. So retrofit, for those that haven't used it, basically takes the JSON and converts it into POJO. Awesome. There's nothing like this on Flutter that I found, mainly because Flutter doesn't have reflection, right? And so the big problem there was I had so many endpoints and so many data types. I'm a lazy developer. I did not want to write down all these single data types over and over again and build out a from JSON and to map and all sorts of crazy stuff there. So I started digging. And I found this great library called Jaguar Serializer. Anyone here used this before? No, perfect. No one knows about this library, and I don't know why. This is awesome. So what Jaguar Serializer does is, here's a simple code snippet. I have a message class. Message is just a simple object, simple PODO, as I like to call it. And all I'm doing here is I'm annotating that this should be generated. And I override the to map, and I fill out what it should be when it converts into a map, when I'm actually sending it back to the server. And then in my pub spec, I enter Jaguar Serializer version 0.5.1, and I install the command line tool, Jaguar CLI. I run it, and it automatically generates the actual Dart file with all the from JSON and to map stuff done for me. And so this is how I use it. I call it an http.get. This is me making a request for a conversation, passing a conversation ID. When the message comes in, I take the response body, I convert it into a map, and I deserialize it right into a PODO, right? And it works really well. And so now I just have a message object that I can pass around my app versus having a map and then converting that into a message object and then doing the painful conversion back. So use it, it's a must. I think it's like the de facto thing you have to use in a Flutter app because you're always almost going to be using JSON unless you're crazy and use XML. And so this is the best thing to use there. Now, this is a common little widget pattern that I developed in the app, and this is just like a quick tip in the app, and which is a lot of places I'm using gesture recognizer. And I think almost everyone here is using gesture recognizer to do taps or drags and stuff. What I found is I don't want to keep creating a new gesture recognizer and have like a big syntax there, pass in a child, create a function and stuff. So as well with dialogues, right? You do show dialogue, then you have a really complicated, not complicated, but a big enough method call to create an actual dialogue. So what I did was, because Flutter widgets are these immutables, lightweight widgets, I just stuck them into a static class I call common widget utils. And what I do there is, I have widget utils that add click. And add click takes in a function, a widget and a function. It shouldn't be called container, actually. It should just be a normal widget. And then here, I just create a gesture recognizer. So this really streamlines my development, where I can just do add click, pass in the two parameters, and I'm done. Same thing with show dialog. You can see that a dialog takes in a lot of stuff there. All I do is create dialog, pass in a context and the actual message I want to show, and that's it. I don't need a complicated widget tree in my file there. Next, once I started doing all this stuff, I need to deal with routing. The app has a lot of pages. The demo, I only showed 2 pages, but the app is very deep. There's galleries and videos and rating and all sorts of crazy stuff. And so I needed a good routing system. Flutter's routing system is good, but it doesn't make it easy to pass data through, right? Coming from Android, all I do is I take a bundle and I just pass in a bundle. I look at the other app, and then I can extract that bundle there. It doesn't make it easy. So I looked into the docs, and I found out that you have to use onGenerateRoute and parse in the arguments yourself. I'm lazy, I'm crazy, I don't want to do that. And so I found a great library called Fluro, and Fluro is built on top of Flutter's routing system. What I like about it has these function handlers that actually pass in the arguments that I passed in the route. So then I can take those arguments and I can convert them or pass them into my state. And I'll show that example in a second. And so that's Fluro. That's the cool logo there. And you can see that I have a routes class, and basically configure routes has tons of routes. In this example, I just have a chat route, and it takes a chat handler function. And then the chat handler function creates a new widget, new chat screen, and takes in the name, ID, and the conversation ID. So when I want to start chatting with a member, I click on the member's profile, and all these arguments are passed in. And the way I call this, let me see, where is it? Okay, the way you actually call it is simple. You just call navigator.push and pass in the arguments as you would in a website, like we're doing Angular development or any sort of web development as query parameters, and they'll get parsed into a bundle there. That's where I actually create, you configure your routes at the start. That was just some sample code there. All right, so Fluro, use it, it's a must. I find it extremely useful, and that's like the best routing available. The next part that I ran into was images. They're a big part of the app, obviously. There's images everywhere. But I needed something that was robust. I just didn't need something that tried to load an image, didn't cache it, and then just died if the mobile network wasn't working or the person's on like 2G or something. And so I didn't want to write this. Again, I'm lazy. I started looking, and I found something written by Flutter team.
Slivers have a parallel render sliver hierarchy, I guess. So if you want to see the actual code for layouting and stuff, it's inside this. And slivers, like the box ones, they can have either one child or multiple children. There's no opinion from the outside of this. And it's sort of a contracting thing between the parent and the children where they speak the same protocol and then decide what to communicate externally. Something like that. And then there's more stuff, but I can probably answer questions later if you want, but it's pretty weird, but it really allows you, if you ever want to play with it, to create things that are pretty much not possible otherwise without manually handling everything, which is not nice. And you can also use this to just slightly change stuff instead of necessarily rebuilding everything from scratch, which is not what you want.
So, no, not working anymore. Ah, that's good. Hey, oh, and now it works. Well, no, stop. Okay, wait, okay. One, okay. Okay, keynote, bad keynote. So, links. If you haven't seen those are two amazing videos, one by Adam, one by Ian. The first one is if you're curious about the box protocol, the render box protocol. This explains everything. And the other one is about the duality between widgets and the rendering layer. This explains really well. And, no. So, can this, no. Well, it's a GIF. Oh, come on, really? Well, this is a GIF, and it's really nice, but whatever. It's a reference. Doesn't matter. And yeah, so the slides will be at that link. They're not yet. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
For my last time up here, I'm like, no, I want the pillow microphone.
Can I point out something that I just noticed that I want to draw all of your attention to? Can you look at how cute the little feet are? It's not the most adorable thing you've ever seen.
But does it have a mic in it? It's been a long 2 days.
Currently.
We made it! Woohoo! Well, almost.
We're not done.
We're not done. We're done with
We are done, but we as a collective are not done yet. So
the royal we.
But this is the last time you have to deal with us on stage, so that is cause for celebration.
They didn't. I'm glad. Oh, good. It was a standing ovation. I feel bad.
Yeah.
This is kind of awkward. So the story, a short break. It's 2:07 right now. We do want to start at 2:30, so it's a 23-minute break.
What are we starting?
Unconference, which is like a conference.
But the Boolean negation.
I have no idea.
I think Natalie has a package for that.
The unconference package?
No, for Boolean negation.
Probably. So, short break. I was told that we have way too many t-shirts. So I think we're at a point now where if you haven't already got swag, it's free for all. So if you have kids and spouses and significant others, doctors, dentists, grab a shirt.
So, short break, come back here at 2:30, and
maybe a little bit before.
Organization for the unconferences. Wim, who is right there, is our
All these
fearless
people are
organizer.
Like, I'm going to go to t-shirt before anybody else.
And with the volunteers for the unconference.
Come here. Otherwise, see you in 20-ish minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, for coming out. I really